Gibt's da einen Fehler? Is there a mistake here? Wir fahren heute in der Stadt. We're driving in the city. Feel free to pause the video now if you'd like a moment to think. So wir fahren heute in der Stadt is a perfectly acceptable sentence. What's important to recognize, though, is that it answers the question wo. That is to say, if we say in der Stadt, we mean within the city limits or around the city. English uses prepositions like these to encode the information that no boundary is being crossed. German encodes the same information using case. Because Stadt is in the dative case, we know we are inside the city. If a German speaker wanted to make this distinction even more clear, they might add a word like herum or umher to the end of in der Stadt. If you wanted to add that Austrian dialect spice, you might swap umher or herum for und um, in which case you'd get something like Wir fahren in der Stadt und um. Whether Austrian or German, it's important to understand that we're still answering the question wo, and therefore using the dative case. So what if we were to put Stadt in the accusative case, and instead say Wir fahren heute in die Stadt? Well, in that example, we'd be answering not the question wo, but instead wohin, at which point it becomes clear that we're not loafing in the city anymore. We're in another town or in the suburbs somewhere, and we're headed into the city. If you want to force the accusative case in English, you can sometimes do so by adding to the end of words like in or on, forming into or onto. So while I can say I put the glass onto the table, I cannot say the glass is onto the table. There, the situation demands the case neutral on. Bear this in mind when looking at the following example. I put the glass on the table. If we wanted to translate this sentence into German and need a little hint as to whether to use the accusative or the dative, we can look to the preposition on. If we can strap a to the end of it and the sentence still makes sense, then we want the accusative. If it doesn't make sense, like in the previous example with the glass is onto the table, then it means we need the dative. Considering that, how would we go about translating our sentence, I put the glass onto the table? Pause the video now if you'd like an extra second to think. Ich stell das Glas auf den Tisch. Stell das Glas auf den Tisch. Here the question wohin is being answered, and as we can see, given the auf den Tisch, Tisch is in the accusative singular. So the takeaway here is that German isn't asking whether there is movement per se, it's asking whether a boundary is being crossed. If the action happens within a space, we answer wo and we use the dative. If the action results in a new position, we answer wohin and use the accusative. English often hides this distinction in prepositions like into or onto, but German makes it visible through case. If the final position changes, you're headed into the accusative. If it doesn't, you say safely in the dative. And once you start thinking that way, a lot of the so-called German case confusion suddenly disappears. So here's a quick challenge. How would you translate the sentence, we're driving onto the bridge, into German, and why? Drop your answer in the comments and tell me whether you're using wo or wohin. Danke fürs Zuschauen. Vierte. Tschüss. Baba.